One of the most common questions I get asked as a face painter is what my most popular design is, and the answer is simple because hands down wherever I go it is always a unicorn. This is always the thing I get asked for the most, and I think I probably could have got through some events with just this alone. So if you're just starting out, if you're learning to face paint, it's a really important one to get right. And I've tried loads of different unicorn designs, loads of different variations, but this one's my absolute favourite because it's really flattering and effective, but it's actually quite simple if you break it down, which means that it'll never slow me down, even if I get 100 unicorn requests in a row, which I sometimes do. So I can, at a busy event, I can probably crank this out in under 3 minutes, which means it's still a line buster even as a full face paint. So this is how I face paint my unicorns, and I hope it helps.
So first things first, let's talk supplies. The first thing I need is a flat 1-inch brush and a rainbow one stroke. Now you can use any brand or variation for these, but these are my absolute favorites, and I have all the products I use in my bio and listed below. And the skill you need these for is to be able to load it well enough so you get that nice bright opaque rainbow. The second product I need is an angled 3/4 inch brush and any one stroke that has a white edge. I'm going to use this for my unicorn ears, so I think any combination of pink and white works really well. Now this is a fundamental skill of face painting, and this is one that's really worth getting right. It's what I call a petal shape, and you use it in so many designs, from flowers to any type of animal. It's essentially a pointed oval, and you want to make sure it's nice and even, because you can see that when I lay it on its side, you kind of get an ear shape. I find that this petal shape is often something that people just starting out will struggle to get right, and it's definitely one of those muscle memory things. So practice your petal shapes, you'll get unicorn ears and flowers and so many other designs down with it once you get it right. Now paint brands aren't something I'm super fussed by until it comes to my white, in which case it has to be DFX. It's the only thing that's opaque enough. And the brush I use it with is this petal brush. Now I'm going to create a double dipped flower by loading it with white, wiping off the tip and then reloading it with a darker colour so you get this beautiful two-toned petal. This is another really fundamental skill for me because it pops up anywhere. It's always the way I decorate designs and add final flourishes, but it can actually be a standalone design on its own. Flowers usually require 5 points like this in order to look right, and I'll often create a little V and a petal in between to trail them off. Next is details, and this is a ride or die brush for me. It's from King Art. It's in my list, I'll link it below, but it just has this really beautiful fine point, and the skill you need this for is flares. Flares are another element that can be added to almost any design just to make it look a little bit more magical and sparkly, but what you want to try and achieve is 4 really tapered points that start at the same place but end in flicks and not blobs. Practice them in different sizes like this. Just always make sure you're pulling out the paint from the same point. Now, I will also add some dots alongside flares often, and again, this just reiterates the size difference like twinkling little stars. The only other brush you'll see me use in this design is this round LC that I use to add lipstick, but you can use anything for this. But I do like using a dauber like this instead of a sponge when I'm stenciling, because you can pop it on the end of your finger like this, and I find that it just gives me a bit more control. And the reason I'll use a stencil for my unicorn horns is that it A, speeds up the process, and B, it avoids it looking too chubby or wonky, which can sometimes lead to the unicorn horn looking a little bit less like a unicorn horn, if you know what I mean, which is a common problem in beginner face painting. And last but not least, the glitter. Now, I have tried every combination of glitter and gel out there, and this is my favorite. This is the one, I promise you. Again, all linked below. I have it in this little pot. The only difference is that I've mixed them together, and I use this little sculpting tool to spatulate it on. And just a quick but important reminder about glitter: even if you're using biodegradable and eco-friendly glitters, nothing's that friendly when it's in the water systems. So if you scrape off your glitter like this and then put it in a baby wipe, put it straight in the bin as opposed to washing it down the sink when you wash your face, it will just make it that much more eco-friendly. And it's 2025, so let's just all do our little bit. And finally, let's do some face painting. So I've got that flat 1-inch brush and my rainbow paint, and I'm just going to create a nice big rainbow over the forehead. Don't worry if you have to go over it a couple of times. I often do, to make it as vibrant as possible. Now, using that same brush, I'm going to bring down those rainbows around the eye and onto the cheek. Now, I like to think this is the unicorn mane, but I also think that designs like this deserve to be a full face paint, because I just want to give the kids I'm painting as much as possible. Next, I'm going to use that angled brush and use those petal shapes to create ears coming out diagonally from either side of the rainbow. As long as you're keeping the ears small enough to be cute, don't worry about them being completely perfect or even. You'd be surprised how forgiving this design is once we've added in all the rest of the details. Now it's flower time, and I'm going to use that double dipped petal to just add some prettiness and some detail into that mane. Do I think this makes it look more like a unicorn? Yes, of course I do, because I've never seen a unicorn without flowers in their mane. Have you? I didn't think so. I like to create a cluster of about 3 petals right at the corner of the eye and then trail it out using that V shape with the petal in the middle in order to kind of continue it on into the design. Now I sometimes add a little cluster of 3 petals right in the middle of the forehead between the ears, and this is going to form the base of my unicorn horn. I then stencil on the unicorn horn just above it, making sure my daub is as dry as possible so that I get a nice clean result. And we're on to final details. So I'm just going to outline my ears to make sure that they are as clear as possible and to really define the white. You can also use an outline to kind of fix or even out any mistakes that you've made in the unicorn ear shape. Then I like to add a couple of flares and dots around the unicorn horn to make it look magical, but make sure not to overdo it with this. It's definitely a less is more situation. And now it's time for the glitter, and something that is really signature to my work is to add that glitter gel right in the middle of the flower. To me, this just looks like the flower stamen or pollen is sparkly, which makes it look like it's a flower from some sort of magical fairyland, which I love. So feel free to use that. I just think it works really well and it makes the placement look that much more deliberate. But I will dab a little bit of glitter on all around the design as well. But again, less is more. Make sure that you're not overwhelming the design with the glitter. The less you put on, the more it will sparkle. It's a weird kind of backwards phenomena, but I promise it's true. And if I have time, I will often finish this design off with a bit of pink paint for lipstick. So that's my unicorn design. I hope you like it. I hope it helps. And if you're just getting started as a face painter, let me know if there are other designs that you'd really like to see, because I'd love to build up a bank of tutorials for all my favorites. If you're a face painter or you'd like to be, I've got loads of other resources as well. It's all linked to my bio, but I'll also link it below. I hope it all helps, and happy painting.